Chapter 25 Guilt. Once being, thou hast two opiciuns hidden in thy shadows, and hoping that nobody saith they, and using a disguise. They first needeth less preparation, they second whoever beeth much more sportful. The Spy Master from Ruins of the Nest by Duchess Antenia. Volkit. We reached Vis on the third day of the new moon, leaving about 3 days after we had left. After arriving, we went to the tavern because it would look less suspicious to talk there. The atmosphere was warm and lively. A musician was playing a bright dance that several people were dancing to. Everyone was either drunk or trying to sit in corners and have hushed conversations while looking at everyone suspiciously. There were two signs on the back wall. One had the picture of a bar fight between several very armed and strong-looking people that was causing a lot of damage to the tavern, which had something about not fighting over it. And another, also about fighting, with the second sign pinned to it with number 0 written on it. I wondered what they said. Within 5 steps of the door, an old dragon wearing a strange jester hat came up to me. "Greetings, child! Would you like to go on an adventure?" My apologies, but I am busy, I said. You don't want to go on a quest? I frowned. No. He blinked. What? I have something to do? No! The careful plan is ruined! He disintegrated, leaving the head sitting on the floor. I looked around. No one else seemed to think this was strange. Well, that was odd. What was that? I asked Syl. Syl, or a part of him at least. No one knows why, but he likes to go in taverns disguised as an old man and ask everyone who comes in if they want to go on quests. Old men who actually need jobs done usually get turned down because of this, he answered. We sat down and, much like the other groups of people, started talking in hushed whispers and looking around suspiciously. So, should we disguise ourselves or sneak around? I don't know. The Spy Master said, sneaking around takes less time, but disguising is more fun. It ain't as easy to be discovered, Syl said. I thought for a moment. Is this the crab from Ruins of the Nest? He nodded. Yes, him. Hello, you are planning to sneak around the castle? Someone said. We jumped and looked around. The source of the voice was a Vixic woman with dark grey fur and golden brown eyes, wearing a necklace with a loaf of bread carved into it. Who are you? He asked. How fast can you run? Syl blurted. She looked at him. Is that a threat? She sounded amused rather than threatened. No, fast. She smiled. All right. So, I work for the VLF and was sent around with a couple of others to spy on the Duchess at her upcoming birthday party. We could take a few more people with us if you would want to come. Syl and I looked at each other, then picked the Vix. What is the VLF? I asked, feeling a little foolish as I usually did when asking these sorts of questions. The Vixic Liberation Front was the largest of Vix's resistances. Pretty much what you think of when you think of a Vixic resistance. I nodded. All right. We'll come. We will come. What is your name? What is the plan? Why would you ask children? I thought you did not like to endanger children. I asked. Well, it looks like you're already planning on infiltrating the castle, and people your age are hard to stop when you want something. If you're gonna do this, I'd rather you have our help. The Vix smiled and held out her hand. First, Celia Linnea not. Syl shook it. Sol Astorson, and this is my friend Volkit. He's good. We don't know his papa's name. What was his name? I thought. It must have been said at some point. I thought back to my childhood. My hidden stash of drawings, never going outside, the scoldings, the insults, the beatings. Suddenly, it was the dragonette again, maybe 3 or 4. Matiaka was standing over me. I was staring at the floor. The drawing of a tree was there under my clothes. Shkito! Matiaka shouted. Footsteps. Red filled me and I wish I could turn invisible. Utsek entered. What did he do this time? He was drawing. She gestured sharply to the tree. Again. Utsek pushed me back and picked up the drawing. He examined it, then glared at me, his eyes like wildfires. Fucking yuck, he growled. I kept my head down. I am sorry. If you were sorry, this would not keep happening. He raked his claws up across my face. I flinched, tears stinging my eyes. I will not tolerate this Sylish garbage in my house. Utsek, what is Sylish? I lifted my head a little. He scratched me again. That is none of your concern. I looked down again. I understand. I did not remember much of what came next. Its memories were like a tangle of thorns. Pain, crying, shouting. Someone tapped me on my shoulder and I jumped. I was back in the tavern. First Celia and Syl looked back at me concerned. Are you all right? Syl asked me. You were shaken. I am all right. I remembered my father's name. Shkito. All right, then your name's Tobit. First Celia nodded. In front. Interesting. What? I asked. I might be wrong, but I think that's the name of the Duke of Lepus and Syl. She turned to a Kronjaf, seemingly one of her companions. Banasarom, what's the Duke's name again? A footnote, Banasarom is a Lepusian honorific for unmarried men or boys. He's a Grand Duke, and he's Francis of Deal, the Kronjaf answered, unflinchingly. She smiled a bit. I agree, but that's not who I was asking about, said fast Celia. The Kronjaf sighed and rolled his eyes. Shkitot Mokshvit. Fast Celia looked back at me. Do you remember your grandfather's name? I shook my head. My friends say he sounded like a noble, though. She shrugged. Could be chance. Then she frowned. Wait, what is your name again? She asked Syl. He blinked. Syl Astorson. Why? She looked over. Eva Link! Vixek man around her age looked up. Yes, Selinka? Wizard found your brother or a different Astorson? This man rushed over and looked at him. Syl? Syl blinked, then looked closer. Felink? But you're dead. Shh, not so loud. He glanced around and said quieter. I faked my death. You see, I tried to poison Duchess Janyokanya. He blinked, surprised that he would call her that so loudly. She managed to trace it back to me, so I pretended to drown in the river before she could kill me. And now I got her. His face fell. But she killed Mama and Papa. I'm sorry, I didn't think she'd come after you since you're just children. He smiled dryly. But she don't care about the Grand Duke's children. She cares about some peasants' children even less. First, Celia put one hand on her shoulder. I am sorry, but who is this? I said. He looked at me. Oh, I'm sorry. How rude of me, said the man. I'm Ektitro Katterson, and you've already met my lovely wife, Celia Linnea. He looked around, leaned in close, and added in a hushed tone. But when no one's around, we're Felk or Felink, Astorson, and Elika not. First, Elika smiled. Yes, and since you're my husband's brother and his friend, I suppose you don't need to call me Faust. So frowned. Ektitro Katterson is a very good name, especially since Felink's papa is Ektitro. Felink in the story, not you, of course. Felink smiled, laughed. No, it ain't, but it's better than Jan Jansen. So laughed and Elika smiled, even though he had not said anything funny. So knows my confusion. It's a fixing joke. Then he turned back to Felink and Elika. Why didn't you come to Mama and Papa's funeral? Syl asked. Then he turned back to Felink and Elika. Why didn't you come to Mama and Papa's funeral? Syl asked. Felink shook his head. I did, and so did Mitilena and Tileshka, but but we were in disguise for obvious reasons. Ah, he nodded. So, Miti, Lena, and Dileshka are in the VLF too? Yes. Now, as touching as this reunion is, said Dileka, we have work to do. Come and meet the rest of us. The other people in the group were Benosterom Fredek of Mitskiamjdi, the Kronia from earlier who had white and brown fur and short sleeves, two Letzi's nobles, Tola and Alicia, who was dark purple with black hair and grey eyes, and wore a dark green stola and pella that matched her husband, Tolotiva's toga, who looked a lot like her. They assured us they were not related. And the Marchioness named Katenya Alitava, a dark and yellow dragon, striped with black, most like a bee, and blue eyes. She, however, wished that we simply called her Katya. Footnote. Litzi's is the demonym of Litzi, which is a central Arachne's province. What's the plan? Sol asked. We're going to infiltrate the Duchess's birthday party, which, in case you do not know, is tomorrow, so that we may gather information and send it back to the VLF, said Gertia. I was invited, so that's how I will get in, and you will play the part of servants, because that is the best way for you to blend in. TV saw and I can do both in an accent, so we will be right, said Tola and Alicia said. Her accent reminded me of Tolopolo's, which saddened me. What about me? I asked. Sol nodded. It looks strange. He's a dragon and talks like a noble. Katya thought for a moment. Can you talk like a peasant? Or at least middle class? I blinked in front. Yes, I'm no noble. I'm just a simple farmer boy. Everyone laughed. Katya shook her head. Oh, goodness knows that sounds wrong. You have the phrasing, but it just sounds silly without the accent. You could be my son, or nephew, or some other relation, or perhaps we could say he's the son of Duke Shkito. She frowned for a moment. I thought they only had a daughter, but you do not seem like the person they would want appearing in public much, or at all. Do you remember anything specific about your parents? I fidgeted. They hated art and thought me weak due to my short stature. She nodded. It sounds like Sam. Most only dislike art by fair mages, but a few go so far as to hate art altogether. Do you have a sister? I nodded. Lita. She nodded again. It is likely then. So, which would you like? My relation or a true identity? I shook my head. The latter would not be wise. I am a fugitive. Then you will be my nephew. I must give you a different name. She looked at Sol. And both of you, I'm guessing. He nodded. So, what do you think? UotT, said Sol. Ektitro, I said. Katya's eyebrows raised, and everyone looked at me in surprise. Interesting choice, she said. Tafukit, we already came up with a fake name for you, said Sol. I blinked. Right. Anyway, what is so interesting about Ektitro? Katya looked around before saying quietly, that was the name of the Emperor's brother, the last king of Draco. It is certainly a bold name. Officially, the Emperor has no siblings. It may not be wise to name yourself after one of them, especially that one. Oh, in that case I will be Tomokchi, I said. And I'm guessing he did have siblings, so what happened to them? Tomokchi is a good name. I will not raise any suspicion. As for the siblings, Ektitro died, officially from food poisoning, likely from actual poisoning, and the others disappeared. How many others? She thought for a moment. 10 or 11? My eyes widened. Goodness, he killed all of them? Katya shook her head. Do not say that so loud, and not necessarily. No one knows what happened to them. Perhaps they died. Perhaps they fled to the eastern lands. I blinked. I had already known somewhere that there was something east of Draco. After all, the world did not just end, did it? But to hear someone acknowledge it felt strange. Like when it was pointed out that you could control your breathing or blinking. We stayed in the inn that night and traveled to the castle next morning.
Noce, mi sono, mi mare, ti ho fatto. Man's face, filled with joy. Footnote, that is Arachne, specifically for me to use dialect. It means, my sister, my wife, I have found you in Delos, Arachne, on the Commonwealth, a poetic or respectful way to refer to your spouse is as your brother or sister, and then as your spouse.
Mi frat mit Marte Tairitinat. A woman's voice, sounding equally joyful, on the edge of tears. Footnote, the translation of that is, my brother, my husband, you have returned. The voices faded into darkness, replaced by the sound of clicking of knitting needles and the murmur of conversation. I opened my eyes. I was back in the alien's basement, hungry and thirsty. My goodness, how long was I asleep? I fought through the fog of memories, trying to remember everything that happened. The mercenaries had captured me, and I tried to escape, but Ariel made me sleep again. The next thing I remember was being awoken by the pain of iron, but as that passed, I wondered the situation before sleep took me again. I sat up and stretched. Veronica looked over. Panasamya, you're awake! What day is it? What happened? I asked. The third day of the first crescent, Euris, she said. I blinked. I was sleeping for a whole week? She nodded. Are you hungry? Aileen asked. I nodded. She stood up. I'll ask my mama to make something. She went upstairs and poked her head in a bit later. We have the ingredients to make borscht. Is that all right? Almost everyone had some variation of borscht, thanks to Draco's love of conquering his neighbors. Skezias and the kitchen staff had snuck me a bowl or two many times. Their ability to sneak food to me and the fact that my parents had apparently been quite tall was why I was only a little underweight and even a bit tall. I tried to convince them to give it to people more deserving, but they had never listened. I nodded. Anything would be fine. She nodded. I'll tell my mama. She disappeared back upstairs and returned a few minutes later with a bowl of soup she gave me. Thank you, I said. So, what happened? I asked, beginning to eat the soup. It was different from what we had back in Grasola. I flinched at the taste, but I had not eaten in a week. I would not reject any offer of food I had. What do you mean? Mother Celestina looked up from a book on the Mitoklan. When I woke up, someone dropped iron on me. Who? Her expression darkened. Mother Soluzelus looked down, her knitting speeding up. Provoke it, said Mother Celestina. I blinked in surprise. He did? He did not seem like someone who would do that. You know who you were fighting. She threatened you, so he saw an iron chain around her. He shook it off and it fell on you. Oh, I fidgeted. I did not know him well, but my first impression was of a kind boy, not someone who would use the Emperor's weapon. Iron had long been an unwelcome presence in my life. It was a default punishment when someone in the city-state revolted, or farmers stole siege weapons and turned them into farming equipment, which was surprisingly common. Farmers were determined and creative folk. I shook my head and drank more soup, forcing back the memories. I would not wish that pain on anyone, even Ariel. So, now that we've saved your life, should we use the informer you? Mother Celestina asked awkwardly. I know we've only known each other for 2 days that you are conscious for, but we did save your life. I suppose we could, I said. Then I sighed. So, you rescued me? Of course, Ivankecho said. I sighed. You should not have done that. It was too dangerous. She blinked. What do you mean? You could have died or been captured. It was not worth the risk. No, Chai, you were captured. You would have been killed if we hadn't rescued you. I shook my head. No, it was not worth it. I fidgeted and said quieter. Too many have already died for my sake. Warinka looked confused. Of course it was. Provoking my friend. I wasn't about to let him die. And he'd do the same for you. I fidgeted again, eating more soup. My breathing was beginning to quicken and my ears to flatten. No, do not risk yourself for me. You will only get yourself killed. Mama and Daddy, the woman in Grasola, also as rebels, Viscasia. But we survived. And we could have been killed. You made an incredibly foolish decision. I could have drawn attention to us and ruined our escape, Asina said. But we were right to try. Powatina has lost enough rulers as it is, and Grasola is large. If it fell apart, the effect on Powatina would be devastating. I gripped my bolt tightly at the reminder of my responsibility. Wenka sighed. You're terrible at this. Whose side are you on? Asina frowned. What's wrong with it? It's true. She sighed again. Never mind. Anyway, Notcha, why do you think this? Why wouldn't you want someone to rescue you? I've already told you. It was too dangerous, I said. And what should we have done instead? Asina asked. I have escaped the Emperor before, with Kazialia and Sonelia Zabl. I drank more soup to distract from their probable fates. I could have done it again. No, Bjorcha, you were asleep for a week. When do you think you would have had the chance? By the time you woke up, you would have already reached Pal, and the Emperor would have likely just killed you, or monologued and then killed you. Warlords, especially evil ones, love the artwork, so probably the second one. She frowned. At least they're doing stories, and King Pox and his daughters were very good speechwriters. Princess Flora is more of a poet, but they make for good speeches. Perhaps I could have escaped during his speech. She shook her head. He is smarter than that. He wouldn't like to escape during a speech. So again, what should we have done? I said. I do not know. We weren't looking for you at first, said Warinka. We didn't know you were alive. Well, Sina thought you were. And Provocate told us you were. You should not have done that. It was too dangerous. I frowned. Speaking of Provocate, where is he? He left with Sol because of a very stupid decision made by Juan, Asina said. Juanka rolled her eyes. I've already had this argument. I won't have it again. It wasn't worth it. You could have ruined our escape. That is what I've been saying. You should not have risked yourselves, I said. That was different. We were trying to rescue you. We had a good chance of escape. One that Juan nearly ruined, said Asina. But I was not your original target. You're trying to rescue Provocate. Therefore, rescuing me was an unnecessary risk, like whatever Juan did. No, Shah. What happened? Why do you think this way? Luzel asked in Lepusian. Something about the sound of my native language dislodged something within me. My breathing quickened. My ears flattened to my head. I grabbed my skirts tightly and they changed, shifting from the dark green floral peasant skirts to lavender silk covered in fine lace. I felt the weight of my mantle around my shoulders. The room shifted from the cold wooden basement to an ornate marble room. Duke Ivankecho sat on a throne of iron and stone, his dark eyes surveying the crowd. In front of him, bound and bloody, flanked by soldiers, was a young man, a rebel who had wanted to rescue the small child who was being punished for the city-state crimes, also known as me. I was about 5 years old, holding on to Goluskazia's arm as if my life depended on it, whimpering, my eyes wide with fear. Be quiet, Biedrocia, Goluskazia whispered. Will Duchess Noviodra come forward? Duke Ivankecho said, his voice ringing through the near silent room, clear and filled with malice. I whimpered and clung tighter to Luskezia. Touches? Ivankecho called again. His words sent chills through me, yet still I held on to my cousin. Ivankecho's eyes flared, and he said something to two nearby guards. She walked over to Luskezia and me. She put her arm around me protectively, and the guard began the work of untangling us. Despite our best efforts, they succeeded and carried me, crying and screaming, to the center of the room. Luskezia watched, her arms outstretched, her eyes wide and filled with fear. Another courtier put a hand on her shoulder, muttering some consolation to her. Despite my terror, I remembered the courtesy to the Duke. "Yes, your grace?" My voice shook like a leaf in a gale. "This man," said Duke Ivankecho, "is a traitor to Cinnis. Prove your loyalty to us, young Duchess. Kill him." "No!" Luskezia cried, running forward, somehow pushing past the guards. I was never sure how she was able to do that. Perhaps this was their line, turning a child, even if she was a fair child, into a murderer. Of course, Luskezia was not much better at just 16. She ran past me, pushing me behind her. "No, not her. I will do it instead." Her voice was rough with desperation. Remembering her manners, she curtsied and said, "Please, your grace." Duke Ivankecho smiled a bit. "All right, Lady Luducia. Execute the traitor." A soldier gave her a sword, and her face hardened into a resignation that was unlike her. "I'm sorry, milady," said the man in Lepusian. "There is nothing to be sorry for," said Luskezia. "It is I who should be sorry." Then she plunged the sword into his back, as he whispered, barely audibly, "Viva Louis Durley." She pulled it out, and he collapsed, a pool of blood growing around him, staining the white floor red as she responded at the same volume with, "Viva dova buista viria nua." I began to cry, not hearing the rest of the scene, vaguely aware of being carried back to my rooms. Footnote: the translation of "Viva dova buista viria nua" is "Long live glorious Powatina." It's a response to "Viva Louis Durley." Nocha, are you all right?" Luzellus's voice shook me back to the present. I blinked. The memory faded. The horrors placed by Aileen's basement. Luzellus, Hornka, and Aileen were sitting near me, concerned. "Are you all right? You are shaking." "Old memories," I said. "Your cousin killed a man." "Ah." She and Hornka looked like this was something they knew all too well. "I'm sorry," Hornka said. "We shouldn't have pushed you like that." "It is all right," I said, so my hands were shaking. She did. But which is worse? A girl of 16 becoming a murderer, or a girl of 5?